Well, today is moving day. Not for me, that's still in another week, but for these two aquariums. Hey everyone, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. Zenzo with Aquarium Co-op. I'm right now down here in my fish room, although it doesn't look much like a fish room as there aren't many fish or aquariums left. Many of you might remember this fish room from videos that I filmed down here, as well as when Corey and Dean came down and helped remodel this a few years ago. Well, anyway, I'm gonna be moving to a new home, and I thought it'd be a great way or a great time for me to film a video and explain the moving process on how to move aquariums, as we get many questions on this. Now, I will say that there are many ways of doing it. This is just one of the ways in which I have found success in me moving many times with aquariums. I've done moves from distance of about 500 miles all the way down to 5 miles or so, and in between. Today's move is going to be roughly about 30 miles, and I'm going to film the process and take you through the different steps that I take on how to move my wet pets and my aquariums. So in a few days time, I'm going to be moving this aquarium. This is a 75-gallon Mbuna tank, so it's 4 feet long. And I'm also going to be taking my little 13-gallon brackish tank over there with my puffer. But what I wanted to share is I wanted to show how to kind of prepare for the move. So obviously, you're going to be catching fish and putting them in some type of container. I like to use buckets. They're easy to carry. They fit well in vehicles. They've got nice solid bases. Now, one thing that I like to do is I like to get these things that are called a gamma lid. And the reason why I like these is there's a rubber seal. So if you are going to be, putting a lot of water or worried about sloshing around, it keeps everything inside. And then the cool thing is that it has this threaded little section here. So let me grab another one. That one's a little tight. So you can see right here that this has threads, and this threads right in to the outer seal. So the way that this works is this snaps onto your lid. I'm not putting it on right now, but it snaps on your lid, and then you can easily just spin it on. Now, some people like to drill a hole in there if you're going to be going a long distance, so that could be something that you might want to do, is drill a hole in there to fit an air line. But for me, the actual driving portion is only going to be about 35 minutes or so, so plenty of dissolved oxygen will be in the water and in the area above the water level, and any kind of sloshing around will obviously help in the oxygen exchange. But they are going to be in these buckets for quite a while, and there's a lot of fish in here. So I am going to be using these battery-powered air pumps. These are Aquarium Co-op battery-powered air pumps. And you can see right now it's not plugged in, and I can just hit the button, and it's pumping air. You probably can hear it. So what I'm going to do is, because I'm going to be getting some help and I'm going to be catching these fish ahead of time, and they're going to be in these buckets for probably a couple hours before the move, and then probably an hour or two after we get to the location as I set the tank up. They're going to be in this tank and these buckets for about 4 hours or so. So I'm going to run some air stones from those. Now, you might wonder, if you buy these, why are there these little metal clips on the back of these air pumps? Well, they work perfectly for hanging on things like the handle of buckets. So you can still use the handle, and your little clip just holds your air pump right there. So I'll be adding some air stones and some airline tubing for when these are stationary. And then when I do that, I'll just kind of, pop off a lid. And then when I'm driving, everything will be sealed. Now, there's also hardscape in here, a little bit of plants. And that's where some large containers like these are gonna do well. Now, if you do have a lot of substrate, I would recommend, depends on how big the tank is and how heavy it is and how strong you are and the kind of help that you have. But this is a very thin layer of aragonite and crushed coral, so it's not very heavy. And then I've got a thin layer in that tank as well. So I'm gonna be taking all the hardscape out, putting them in these bins, and the substrate will stay in there along with probably a ½ inch of water or so. The reason why I like to have a little bit of water in the aquarium when I'm transporting it is I want to keep the substrate wet, and that's going to enable the beneficial bacteria to stay alive and not dry out. So that's going to allow me to put fresh water in there right away and put the fish in very shortly. So I will lower the water level down to right around there. There'll be a little bit of water sloshing around. All the substrate will stay wet. If you are going to remove the substrate, I recommend putting enough water to where, you know, let's say you were going to fill this bucket with substrate and you were going to put it up to this level. My recommendation would be to put water in there up to that level or so as well, so the substrate stays submerged in water and stays wet, so that it the beneficial bacteria doesn't crash. So anyway, yeah, this is just a few days. Well, I don't know how many days. Could be a week or so before we move these aquariums, but as you can see, this room is emptying out, and gonna be moving these soon. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start working on breaking the aquariums down, which means I need to do a water removal and take out the hardscape while trying not to make too much of a mess, because I want to be able to see the fish as I'm going in there to catch them. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take some water from the aquariums and I'm going to put them in buckets. So I've got these buckets set up for this aquarium here. I have another bucket in the other room for that aquarium over there. And I also have my storage bins, which I'm going to be putting all the hardscape in. So I'm going to take some water, put it in the buckets so that I can start to do a water change. And I want to get some water before I start making a mess. Not a water change, but removing water. And then once I start removing water, I'm going to start removing the hardscape, and then we'll catch the fish. Here, as I am removing the hardscape, I look inside of my caves to make sure I don't leave any fish in there. And you can see right here that there's a fish inside of this little cave. So I'm going to pour it out into the bucket that has water in it, so that I can be sure that I'm not accidentally putting fish in a bucket without water. So I have a lot of the hardscape, a couple of the sponge filters in here, and some plants. Well, this plant is attached to a rock. I do have some other plants floating in these buckets, but here it's attached to the rock. Now, if you're going to go for a long distance, definitely, you know, keep the plant moist. I would suggest putting it in a plastic bag or wrapping it in a paper towel. Because I'm going a short distance, because there's already humidity in here, I'm going to be covering this with a plastic top. I'm not really worried about that plant. But one more thing I want to show you with the filters is I like to put a sponge filter with just the actual sponge, with the, you know, no base or anything, just kind of floating in there. Couple of reasons. One, it's not going to crush any fish. So if any small fish happen to be in there, there's no weighted base or anything to smash any fish. Two, it's going to help keep the beneficial bacteria healthy in at least these two sponges, in addition to the substrate, so that when I start the tank, or, you know, set the tank up again, we'll already have these filters established. So the tank is empty. I left about 4 inches of water so that the fish can just kind of chill out for a second. I'm going to catch them shortly. Before I do that, I'm going to go over to this tank and start draining that one, and then that will let some of the mulm settle in here, and I'll come back to this one shortly. So now I have this tank fully emptied and that tank fully emptied. And as I mentioned in my earlier little shot, I am keeping a little bit of water in there. There's, you know, maybe an inch of water, and it's actually less than that, but I have it propped up because I was doing a little bit of draining. So maybe like a ½ an inch of water, and that's just enough water to keep the substrate wet. Not too much water to where it's going to be hard to move. This is an acrylic tank, so it should be relatively light. I can actually move this into my truck myself. I will need help on the other end because I have to go down a couple flights of stairs, but for now, this will be just fine. This is a glass tank, but it's a lot smaller. It's only 13 gallons, so I'll be able to pick this up as well. Same thing, just a little bit of water to keep the substrate wet. And this one, I'm actually going to wrap the whole tank in plastic wrap, because I'm going to clean the outside and then put it in the back seat of my truck, where this one's going to go in the truck bed. So right now I've got these 2 buckets with all of the Silosi and the one Burchardi in there, and one Pleco. They are in these 2 buckets. And I also have them connected to air. So I've got some air stones going on in there. And the reason why is they're going to be sitting here for probably about 2 hours. I've got to do the member live stream on the Aquarium Co-op channel. So they're gonna sit here. I'm just getting prepped ahead of time. And then later on, I'll connect the battery powered air pumps as we're moving. And then the little puffer is just in a small container here, also with air, and it's just kind of hanging out, chilling. It'll be just fine. And I'm gonna wrap up this tank a little bit later on, as I don't want it stinking up the inside of my truck right now. But for now, it's just gonna sit there, and then I'll wrap it up and get it ready when I'm ready to go. Having a truck or a van is ideal. I have moved aquariums in much smaller vehicles. In fact, I'll pop up a photo here of one time where I stuffed a 4-foot long, 60-gallon aquarium into a Mini Cooper. But ideally, you're gonna have a larger vehicle for larger tanks. And I've currently put some cardboard boxes down for the base. And then once a tank is in here, I'll put, you know, cardboard and everything all around it to protect the entire tank. All right, so I have the buckets in the back of the truck. Now, as mentioned earlier, in another clip, I believe, if you want to run the air pump while you're driving, if you have a long distance to go, I would recommend drilling a little hole in your lid, and then you can run an air stone and air line through there. Otherwise, for me, again, shorter distance, I'm gonna leave these tops closed. Just splashing around will create enough surface agitation. And again, they're not gonna be in the back of the truck very long. Then once I get to the new house, I'll connect the air lines, or I'll connect the, I'll turn on the battery powered air pumps and put the air stones in there while they're just resting while I get this tank set up. So I'm gonna go ahead and button everything up and hit the road. Okay, I'm at the new location. Everything arrived just fine. This was packed up like this with the tailgate closed, so that's all set. But one thing that's important, another thing that's important as you're moving aquariums is make sure that when you get to your destination that you have a clear path. So I was able to back right up to my front porch. And for me, at our new house, excuse the mess, we've got double doors that I can open. I do have this other back entrance, but I think we're just gonna go right this way. And then for me, unfortunately, stairs, ignore the tape, those are getting repaired. And then down here, I have everything set up. So this is the new fish room, and this is the temporary stand for those two aquariums to fit. This is a 6-foot span. So I'll have a 4-foot section for the 75-gallon tank, and then, you know, plenty of space for the smaller 13-gallon tank. And I'll have those set up there. I've got power and everything ready to go. And this is something interesting. So in this little container, I'm just keeping some snails, as I love snails and I wanna, you know, have some for future tanks as I expand this fish room, but also food for my puffer. So anyway, this is the space. So when my helper gets here, and my helper, I mean my wife, will be able to come right down and put the tank in its spot. Now it is an acrylic tank, it's a little bit easier. And then another thing that's important is to make sure you're able to refill. So for me, as I step out on my deck here, I have a water spigot right there. So I did bring a hose, and I'll be able to bring that hose around and fill the tank right there. And here is, it's kind of hard to tell because it's a cloudy day, but there's the ocean. I also want to point out that the fish are all fine. So if I open the lid here, you can see fish swimming around. You might not be able to see them in the glare, but they are swimming around in there. I got the battery powered air pumps back on. Fish swimming around, and there is the puffer, not liking its small digs, but still safe and sound. So we'll go ahead and let them just kind of chill out there until I get the tank set up. Got the aquariums set up, and they're on the stand. They're where they're supposed to be. You can see how I wrapped this one in plastic wrap so it didn't make my truck cab smell like the ocean. But anyway, now I'm going to start filling with water. Now, you might notice this little yoga mat thing under here. It's just because this is a rimless tank, and this is just on a piece of plywood desk that I made, and I just want that little bit of cushion. So I'll trim that so you can't see it, and also trim this little foam here. Yeah, now it's time to start filling with water. Now I've added water back into the aquarium. I made sure that I obviously added dechlorinator. I also added the necessary salts for the brackish puffer tank. So I'm using a reef salt. And then I also used some buffers and some cichlid salt for this Mbuna tank. So now that everything is set up, I am going to add the fish. Now one thing that I did do is I did a quick temperature check. The temperature in the big tank is roughly about 68 degrees right now. So definitely on the cool side, but I also just checked the temperature in the buckets, and they're also right around 68 degrees because they've been sitting for a while without a heater. The temperature in the puffer tank is a little bit warmer because I was able to add some more warm water in there as I was refilling, and that temperature is right around 72, 73 degrees. They both have heaters. This one obviously is going to take a little while to heat up. This one's doing just fine. So I'm gonna go ahead and catch the Mbuna out of the bucket, which is pretty easy, and put them in the big tank. Future Zenzo here. We're several days later. It is a disaster in this room. I actually just got off of a call with Corey because I'm working here in my desk now. We were actually talking about future ideas for this area, and I'm really excited with what we've decided on for setting up aquariums in here, which will be in a future video. But just thought I would come down and show a little final footage for this video of the aquariums. There is the Psilocybe tank, along with the no-tail Brochardi, and there is a Pleco that lives in that little cave right there. Still have little snails. And the puffer is hanging out. He's underneath the rock back there behind the filter. But when he sees me, he swims right up to the top because he knows he's gonna get like a mealworm or a snail or something. Whoa. But anyway, it's hard to navigate in this room because it's such a mess, but I do need to clear up some space as we're gonna have a sofa there, pull-out bed, and getting all new racking. That's gonna go from there all the way over there with new aquariums. So eventually this is probably gonna live over there, and this will probably live somewhere over here maybe. I'm not quite sure, but for now they're here until we start getting stuff in to set up more tanks. So thanks for watching. Hopefully this was informative and helping you understand different ways of moving with aquariums. I tried to film and talk about as much as I could while also moving. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.